the great house at Collinwood in the year 1840, a time of severe crisis for the Collins family. Quentin Collins has been deposed as master of Collinwood. Following a series of tragedies, Quentin has been placed on trial under a very old law for the practice of witchcraft. If found guilty, he will be publicly beheaded. On this day, his trial has begun, and the prosecution has called a surprise first witness, Quentin's wife, Samantha.
Mrs. Collins, the counsel for the prosecution has asked you to testify to a specific incident. Please do so.
I have witnessed the fact that my husband has communicated with the dead and been responsible for bringing an alien spirit into the house. I do not know why he has done this, unless possibly to terrorize all who live there. But I swear, the spirit is at large in the house.
Tell the court how you know that, Mrs. Collins.
Because I have seen it.
Am I to believe that the court can accept this kind of hysterical testimony? It is not only possible, but highly likely that what Samantha Collins saw was a figment of her own imagination.
I did not imagine it. And I am not the only person in this courtroom who has seen it.
Tell the court, Mrs. Collins, who else has seen it?
That woman there, Daphne Harridge. Not only has she seen the ghost, but she's known of its existence for a very long time. That woman knows. Daphne Harridge knows the evil that Quentin Collins has brought to Collinwood.
I object. Daphne Harridge is not on trial here.
The witness is stating a fact, not making an accusation.
If it is a fact that Collinwood is haunted, it has nothing to do with the charge against the defendant.
The state intends to prove that it does, if I am to be permitted to continue.
The objection is overruled. You may continue, Mr. Dawson.
Will you kindly identify this, Mrs. Collins?
It's my husband's diary.
Your Honor, the state intends to show that the spirit to which Mrs. Collins has made reference appeared at Collinwood in response to a summons made by Quentin Collins and Daphne Harridge. I invite you to read the pertinent passage to the court, Mrs. Collins.
Last night, I held a seance with Daphne. We were desperate to contact Joanna's spirit. She did appear to us, but only for a fleeting second. I must keep trying. I must find a way to communicate with her.
Did you write?
Thank you, Mrs. Collins. Does the defendant deny that this is his personal journal?
We do not deny it.
Your Honor, I offer this as Exhibit A in the state's case against Quentin Collins. Now then, Mrs. Collins, will you tell the court when you first saw the spirit of this Joanna?
Last evening, I came downstairs. I heard Miss Harridge behaving hysterically in the drawing room. I went in to reprimand her, and I saw the spirit of a woman.
A woman like the spirit that Quentin Collins conjured up from the dead.
I object to the phrase conjured up.
Objection sustained. Counselor's statement shall be stricken.
I have no further questions for Mrs. Collins, Your Honor.
Mrs. Collins.
However, before the counsel cross-examines the witness, I would ask the court's permission to call Miss Daphne Harridge to the witness stand.
This is absurd, Mr. Dawson. I have every right to question this witness now before you call another.
I am not challenging your rights, Mr. Collins. You will be given a chance to cross-examine the witness.
I demand that opportunity now, Your Honor. What counsel requests is totally ridiculous.
I wish to remind you, Mr. Collins, once more, that the ordinary procedures of the court are not operative in this trial.
I simply ask for fair play. I insist now that I cross-examine this witness, not whenever it strikes the whim of Mr. Dawson or the court.
You are advised, Mr. Collins, that this tribunal has not been convened to act upon whim, and it shall not so act. I see no harm in Mr. Dawson's request. he may be allowed to ask Mr. Harry to testify.
Exception, Your Honor.
Noted, Mrs. Collins, you may step down.
The state calls Miss Daphne Harridge to the witness stand.
Miss Harridge?
No, I will not testify against Quentin Collins because he's innocent. The only testimony that I can give will be in his defense.
I ask the court to remind Miss Harridge that she must obey its wishes.
Miss Harridge, under the law being invoked here, you are obligated to take the witness stand on the request of either counsel. Daphne Harridge, do you swear that the testimony you're about to give this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Now then, Miss Harridge, you have heard Miss Collins' testimony. Did you in fact take part in the seance which she mentioned?
Yes, I did.
I see. Would you tell the court whose idea it was to conduct this seance? Was it your idea, or was it Quentin Collins?
It was Quentin's.
And did the spirit of Joanna Mills appear as a result of Mr. Collins' summons?
Yes.
I see. Tell me, Miss Harridge, why were you willing to participate in this seance?
Because Mr. Collins asked me to as a favor.
Yes, but why you in particular?
Objection. The question is irrelevant.
Objection sustained.
I have no further questions for Miss Harridge. Your witness, Mr. Collins.
Miss Harridge, it seems that my colleague overlooked the most important question of all. What exactly was the purpose of the seance?
Well, there'd been a number of disturbances in the house, and Mr. Collins was very upset by them.
What kind of disturbances? Can you describe them?
Well, Mr. Collins called them astral disturbances. They're very difficult to describe in words, but things began to appear in the house, such as gloves and a purse that had belonged to Joanna Mills. And then one night, Mr. Collins heard music playing that had always been associated with her. The source of the music remained a mystery.
In other words, Quentin Collins felt he was being haunted by someone from his past. Is that true?
Yes.
So actually, the purpose of the seance was to try and put the spirit to rest. Is that true?
Objection! Counsel is leading this witness.
Sustained. You will rephrase your question, Mr. Collins.
Miss Harridge, how did Quentin Collins react to these astral disturbances?
Well, I would say he was very emotionally upset by them.
In your opinion, would you say he was a tormented man?
Yes, I think he definitely was.
And you feel that his only motive for holding the seance was to rid himself of these spirits at Collinwood?
Oh, yes, that was his one and only motive.
Thank you, Miss Harridge. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
You may step down, Miss Harridge.
Your Honor, may I now be allowed to call the prosecution's first witness?
Mrs. Collins, will you take the witness stand again, please?
Mrs. Collins, it is most unusual for a wife to testify against her own husband. Can you tell us why you did it?
Because I had knowledge that I thought should not be withheld from this trial, and because I thought it was my duty to come forward.
Well, let's discuss this knowledge you speak of. You have alleged that you saw spirits of the dead.
It wasn't an allegation, it was a fact.
Can you describe these ghosts you claim to have seen?
Yes, I can. This ghost was a woman.
And what was she wearing, and what did she look like?
She was young and she was wearing a cape
Precisely where did you see her?
in the drawing room at Collinwood.
And how did you know she was a ghost? Did she speak to you, or have you seen many ghosts in your life?
Objection!
I knew it was a ghost
Sustained.
because she disappeared before my very eyes.
Did she say anything to you before she disappeared?
No, she didn't say anything.
In other words, she just appeared and then disappeared.
Exactly.
Then why do you insist on putting this ahead with Quentin Collins?
Objection! Defendant's connection with the spirit has already been established by his own diary.
Objection sustained.
Mrs. Collins, you say you felt it was your duty to step forward. Don't you feel you have certain duties as a wife?
In my opinion, this was the higher of the two duties.
In my opinion, you came here because you hate him.
Objection!
Sustained.
That's not
Mr.
true.
Collins, the court is not interested in your opinions. You will kindly confine yourself to the facts.
Were you or were you not motivated by hatred of your husband, Quentin Collins?
No, I was not.
Do you love Quentin Collins?
Objection! The question
I'll
is
answer the
irrelevant.
question. No, I do not love my husband.
Mrs. Collins.
Objection sustained. The statement will be stricken from the record.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
You may step down.
Just one moment. I have a few questions for the witness. Mrs. Collins, why do you think your husband tried to summon up a spirit from beyond the grave? Do you believe that his motive had anything to do with you?
Yes, I do.
Will you tell the court why?
This woman whose spirit my husband was trying to bring back, Joanna Mills, was Quentin Collins' mistress.
And isn't it true, Mrs. Collins, that when Joanna Mills was alive, she almost broke up your marriage?
Yes, it's true.
But you refused to allow the marriage to be dissolved.
That's right.
And because of his bitterness over your decision, Quentin Collins tried to summon the spirit of his mistress to haunt you. Objection!
The objection sustained.
I have no further questions.
The witness may step down.
Your Honor, I move that the testimony of Samantha Collins be stricken from the record.
On what grounds?
On the grounds that she is a prejudiced witness, and her allegations have not been borne out. On the contrary, it has been shown here that Quentin Collins is the hapless victim in this matter. And the only purpose for his holding the seance was to try and put Joanna Mills' soul to rest.
Judge Vale, Mrs. Collins' testimony does not constitute the whole of the prosecution's case, but it is vital to the overall information I intend to bring forth.
That has nothing to do whatsoever with this case. The charge here is witchcraft. And as unjust as I may think it to be, I must insist that we adhere to this charge. And Samantha Collins' testimony has nothing to do with this charge. Anybody can hold a seance, Your Honor. Anyone can try to communicate with the dead. That does not constitute witchcraft.
Your Honor, I urge you to consider this decision very carefully.
Counsel may rest assured that we will. It is the opinion of this tribunal that Samantha Collins' testimony has not been proved and, in fact, is not germane to the central idea of this case, namely the charge of witchcraft. Therefore, the motion of the defense is to be granted. The testimony of Samantha Collins will be stricken from the record.
Your Honor, I object.
You may take exception, Mr. Dawson. You may not object.
Very well. I take exception.
Noted. Now, this tribunal will be adjourned until 10 o'clock Monday morning.
It took you a long time to come back from the courtroom.
I'm sorry.
Did you stop in the jail to see my husband, or should I say your lover?
He is not my lover.
Even if that's not true now, it's just a matter of time, isn't it, Miss Harridge?
Mrs. Collins, I don't know what you're talking about.
You're in love with my husband. And that was quite evident from your testimony. You're hopelessly in love with him, just as Joanna Mills was. Well, you're wasting your time, Miss Harridge. My husband will be found guilty, and then he will die.
You really want to see Quentin dead, don't you?
I want the peace of mind he never gave me.
I don't see how you can even live with yourself after what you did today.
I did what I had to do.
Is that what you're going to tell your son?
If you're planning to tell Tad...
Oh, I won't have to tell Tad, Mrs. Collins. You will. Because he's bound to be curious about what happened in court, about what you told them. And if you lie to him, Mrs. Collins, he'll know about it. He's an intelligent
I know
boy.
that my son loves me. I know that. And I know he will understand that I testified the only way that I could. You see, Miss Harridge, I did not go into that courtroom voluntarily. I was subpoenaed by Mr. Dawson.
How did you arrange that, Mrs. Collins?
How dare you speak to me like
I'll
that?
speak to you any way I wish now, because I no longer care what happens to me.
Then it won't be a surprise to you to know that you are discharged as of this moment. Pack your things, get out, the sooner the better.
Mrs. Collins, I don't think you're capable of really loving anyone. I wish I could hate you, but I don't. I only feel so very sorry for you.
Well, I just think for a man who hasn't practiced law for a long time, you did a very good job.
This is no time to be congratulating ourselves.
What do you mean?
Well, let's be realistic. We repudiated Samantha's testimony, but she's only one witness. There are still others to come.
I don't care, Desmond. I'm very encouraged by today.
Now, what are you going to do about your so-called friend Gerard?
Well, I'm going to have a talk with him later.
Don't you realize that Dawson was crucifying you there in that courtroom and it was Gerard's doing?
Desmond, you may be very right about Gerard, but I do think we have to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to have a nice long talk with him, and then I'll know what I need to know.
I only hope you know what you're doing.
Well, my dear, you and I have nothing to say to each other, so get out.
I have something to say to you, Quentin.
I'll be back, Quentin.
Say what you have to say and then leave.
With pleasure. I have no desire to be with you any longer than necessary. I thought you would like to know. Your paramour has been discharged.
What are you talking about?
Daphne Harridge. I have dismissed her as Tad's governess.
You can't do that.
I have already done it.
You don't have the authority to do it. Daphne is going to stay at Collinwood as long as I want her to.
You are no longer master of Collinwood. Have you forgotten? Gerard Stiles is.
All right, Gerard is in charge. Do you have his consent?
I don't need it. Tad is my son. I know what's best for him.
Now, you listen to me. I'm going to have a long talk with Gerard. I intend for Daphne to stay at Collinwood. And there's not a thing you're going to do about it.
I can take this matter to the divorce courts if you force me to. You're in enough trouble without being involved in a romantic scandal. Think of the effect that will have on Tad.
You wouldn't do that?
Oh, yes, I would. Quite frankly, I don't care whether your Daphne stays or leaves. You can have her by your side for the whole trial if you think it'll do you any good. Tad is my only concern. I don't want that girl around him. Do you understand?
This room, it's the most beautiful room I've ever seen. Gerard, I'm so happy. Gerard? Gerard, where are you? Gerard?
It's happened again. Another dream. But why can't I remember any of them? And why are they so disturbing? What's happening to me? A room. There was a room I'd never seen before. But where is it?